She hadn't set foot in her mother's house for years. She'd convinced herself the shadows of her childhood couldn't reach her anymore. Now, standing before the peeling door, she realized she'd never truly escaped. When she entered, the house greeted her with a familiar heaviness. Too still, too dark, its air heavy with secrets she'd tried to forget and silence that had suffocated her once, had been waiting for her, all along. Inside, the scent of old wood and dust pressed in around her. Shadows clung to the corners, stubborn and watchful. Though her mother lived alone, the house felt crowded with unspoken memories, haunted by more than just the two of them. Over tea, they exchanged careful pleasantries, both pretending the years hadn't stretched between them like brittle thread. Then her gaze drifted to the old, battered album on the table, the one from her childhood, its edges frayed, as if gnawed by time. She'd never liked looking at her childhood photos. Something about them always made her uneasy. The memories caught in those pages seemed to belong to someone else, someone she didn't want to remember. Or rather, couldn't. She tried to concentrate on what her mother was saying, but her eyes kept drifting toward the album. The one she remembered being afraid of as a child, unbeknownst. Her mother noticed her glance and nudged the album closer, dusted off from years in the attic. "You should look through it." Her mother's voice resonated barely above a whisper. "It's been a long time. You know, like a rundown through your memories." Memories. Memories were unreliable things, shifting and treacherous. She'd never trusted hers. Looking at her childhood album always made her feel suffocated, as if someone else was also watching from behind her, breathing on her neck. "You used to love looking at these when you were little," her mother continued. "You'd spend hours pointing at yourself, saying, 'That's me.'" She offered a polite smile. She didn't want to. Still, she opened the album. The first page lifted with a brittle crackle, sending a veil of dust into the air, as though the book exhaled. The pages smelled of glue and old paper, familiar yet sour and bitter. Page after page contained her baby photos. Messy birthdays. School events. All of this should have been familiar, but it wasn't. Something in her chest twisted tighter with every turn of the page. And the familiar feeling of hot breath is back again. Next page. Her third birthday, her arms in the air, a paper crown askew on her head, frosting smeared on her cheek, a gap-toothed grin. Balloons littered the background. She faintly remembered the room, with its sweet smell of sugar and balloons. She almost smiled, until something tugged at her attention. Her gaze caught a flicker in the far corner of the image, an indistinct blur, soft, vague. A distortion, almost like another child, stood half-hidden in the shadows. She frowned. Probably the camera. Old film. Just bad lighting. Nothing unusual. She thought. She turned another page. First day of school, herself in a red sweater, standing by the doorframe. Her smile was a little too stiff. Her small hand clutching her backpack strap, and another hand, just out of frame, resting beside as if retreating. And again, she saw it. Next to her other hand, just at the edge of the frame, was another, small, pale hand, almost extending towards her. Not a blur this time, but a shoulder, a presence, half visible, nearly stepping into frame, facing the camera, vague, but unmistakably there. Her mother peered over her shoulder, brow creased, squinting her eyes, and frowned slightly. "Strange," her mother murmured. "I don't remember anyone else being there." Neither did she. Yet the photos made her skin crawl. A sharp, wordless fear fluttered inside her, like something she'd forgotten was trying to resurface. She felt a strange tug in her memory, like a word on the tip of her tongue that she'd been trying to remember her whole life. She set the album aside, unable to bear the pounding in her head anymore. Later that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the morning incident. Something about that blur wouldn't leave her alone. Curiosity, or something else, kept pulling her back to it. She felt restless, suffocated by the blurred images forming in her head. That night, long after her mother went to bed, she crept downstairs, unable to resist. She turned on the lamp and reached for the album on the table. When she opened the album, her breath hitched. The photos didn't look the same. Every picture looked different now. The blur, it wasn't a blur anymore. It was replaced by someone. A child. Of her age. Her height. Her face. Her dress. Her own gap-toothed smile, mirrored. Her heart thumped against her ribs. Her breath stuttered. She flipped through the next photo. And the next, faster, year after year, birthday after birthday. There were two versions of her. Every page, from toddler to school plays, every photo showed not one little girl, but two. Mirroring each other, side by side, staring into the camera. Her pulse quickened. No, this isn't possible. Her voice was hoarse, overwhelmed. With a trembling finger, she traced over one of the pictures. The ink felt raised, almost fresh, and slightly tacky. It felt too real to be true. And then she noticed something even stranger, a fresh message scrawled across the back of one photograph. New handwriting, jagged and unfamiliar. Finally found you. Her hands went cold. Morning brought no comfort. She rushed to her mother, clutching the album towards her chest. Her mother was sitting at the kitchen table, looking ghastly pale but awake. She showed her mother the album again. Her mother's face turned into confusion. Her mom kept on insisting, "Sweetheart, you were always alone in those photos. You never had a twin." Her hand trembled as she showed the backside of the photo with unfamiliar handwriting. Her mother's face went pale, drained of color. Her mother stared, horrified, at the handwriting. "That's not my handwriting on the back. These weren't here before," the older woman's voice thinned to a whisper. "You were my only child. We never..." Her mother halted. Something inside her mother's eyes flickered, as if a tightly sealed door inside her had swung open to old terror. "I burned the rest of the pictures," her mother murmured. "I thought that would be enough to keep her away from finding you." Her mother's voice came out in tremors. She was too preoccupied with her own fear and bafflement to hear anything clearly. Did you see the photos?" she whispered. Her mother didn't answer. After a long pause, her mother said, "You were both sick when you were born. They said, one of you wouldn't make it. One of us." She looked bewildered. Her mother's voice broke. "I buried her. Next to the tree in the yard. I didn't want you to remember." The room felt smaller. The air, heavier. The room seemed to shrink, thickening with a cold, ancient grief. "When you were little, you talked to her every night. Like you could hear her." They both fell silent, and the room echoed with her mother's soft sobs and her ragged breathing. She set the album aside and left for her room, in a daze. Sleep felt impossible that night. She stared at the ceiling until the room felt like it was breathing, suffocating her. That night, she scanned the photos with her phone, desperate to remember, to ask her father later. On the digital screen, the images were warped. Each digital version shifted creepily right in front of her eyes. She froze. The other child's eyes seemed to follow her movement, scrutinizing her every breath. When she looked away, the pictures rearranged themselves, with the second child growing older beside her, mimicking every pose. From frame to frame, the twin edged closer, posing, mirroring her own expressions, growing older beside her, almost overlapping into her. Panicking, she tore a photo apart in desperation, ripping the other child out. She felt a sudden chill, like someone exhaling deeply, directly at her neck in disappointment. By morning, the photo was whole again. The twin smile was wider, eyes brighter. The twin looked delighted. Sweat covered her, and the room temperature dropped by several degrees. Her heart rammed in her chest. She decided to leave by the next day. She didn't even bother to let her mother know about her departure. She packed in silence and sent a haphazard text to her father stating she couldn't stand this anymore. That night, she dreamed of her nursery, but in her dream, the nursery was drowned in darkness, with a second crib. A second heartbeat pulsing in the dark, overlapping with a lullaby that cut off mid-note. She woke up with her own voice echoing in her ears, except she hadn't spoken. Then came the laughter, her own, doubled, echoing from the hallway. She was terrified. She went out to look for her mother but ended up following the sound with dread. Then, she heard it from the hallway from the other end. A giggle. Her giggle. Echoed twice. A child's laugh, followed by her own, doubled. She followed the sound, her heart pounding, and reached the table where the photo album lay open, unlike she had left it moments ago. There, in the album, a new photo was slowly emerging, developing in real time right in front of her. She watched as the colors crept in from the edges, slowly followed by the crimson liquid of bright red smearing across her body, then her face. It showed her, moments ago, hunched over the album, while the red smears blossomed across her. Behind her, two children stared at her, one familiar, one foreign. The photo looked eerily hazy with the steep contours of both children looking directly at her. Another new photo surfaced beside it, again with color seeping in from the edges. It showed her lying in bed, eyes open wide. And beside her was a small shadow curled under the covers, forming a heap with its head out, staring at her sleepy form. Slowly, it started to turn toward her. Terror clawed at her. She slammed the album shut, heart hammering, stumbling back in fear. The light started to flicker. Her eyes failed to adjust. Her phone buzzed, a notification. New photo received, but no sender name. Her hands shook as she opened it, her eyes still adjusting to the flickering light. It was the same image from the album, but with the small shadow moving toward her sleeping form, hovering over it. Then, in a flicker, the image rearranged into two little girls, just like in the album. They were staring at the camera. At her. Then, the other one moved. The twin tilted her head, smiled faintly, and mouthed something. The screen flickered. And her phone glitched. Then a whisper brushed against her ear, warm and close, "You forgot me." It was her own voice layered with an echo, but stretched, barely above a whisper, "But I never forgot you." The lights in the hallway strobed, inhumanly fast, blurring her vision, dissolving into white streaks. The air turned frigid. She turned toward the mirror in the hallway. And with her blurred vision, she saw two reflections instead of one. One was her, while the other resembled her, yet it wasn't her. Both reflections stared back. Hers, pale and terrified. The other's, smiling, still. The other reflection raised its hand, and waved. Slowly, the other's hands moved and clasped her reflection's neck, smiling eerily with black ink pouring from its eyes and the corners of its mouth. She felt breathless. She felt suffocated, as if something tight was wired around her neck. She tried to hold on to something, anything, but her vision narrowed, filled with nothing but the mirror reflection. She noticed that from her own reflection's eyes, something red started to pour out, while the resembling one smile increased more, with black ink forming pathways across its face. The resemblance's lips tugged wide, stretching across her whole face. She tried to move and felt something hot and sticky coming out of her eyes. Her eyes hurt, and she lost her balance while looking for an escape. Her chest tightened with every passing moment. She fell to her knees, trying to breathe. The temperature in the room decreased even more, with wind creeping inside the house violently surrounding her, yet none of it entered her lungs. She crawled across to her room, the red, bloody liquid pouring out of her eyes, inflicting pain and blurring them. She clawed for escape as the darkness started to surround her. She barely made it across the hallway when darkness started to swallow her. She tried to move faster, fighting the pain, fighting the wind, fighting the darkness, yet she couldn't move past it. The wind that surrounded her pressed into her, pushing her back, further and further. The last thing she saw was her own face, multiplied by 2, lost in the glass, before her eyes shut of their own accord. And she finally succumbed to the darkness. The unseen twin, at last, had found her.